All eyes are on SpaceX, but this company is just the beginning of Elon's empire. Joining us today is Luke Lango with InvestorPlace. Luke, you have a list of 4 stocks today that are rising along with Elon's empire. Again, everyone is talking about SpaceX right now. This is one of the hottest stories out there, but it's just the tip of the iceberg of everything that Elon is working on and the number of companies he has. So first off, let's just start the discussion with why are so many investors really focused on what Elon is doing?
Yeah, so I would say that we are at the convergence point for Elon Musk, that over 25 years, the man has built a variety of seemingly separate business entities, business ventures. And we are now at the point, the convergence point, where all of those various ostensibly separate business ventures are converging into one central goal, one central mission, which is to create the world's best artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence. SpaceX, to your point, is getting all the limelight right now because of the $1.75 trillion IPO, but a lot of people are kind of missing the subheadline there that SpaceX IPO is already itself a convergence of 2 of his business ventures, which is SpaceX and XAI, which XAI itself was also a convergence of XAI and X. So we're already seeing this convergence happen, and I think it's only a matter of time before the whole ecosystem comes under one umbrella, call it Elon Co. or the Elon Empire, and that becomes the world's most dominant company that does invent and distribute artificial superintelligence throughout the world.
I think the super empire is absolutely a story that a lot of investors are paying attention to. I'm curious what that might look like in the market as everyone is looking to get a piece of SpaceX and looking to get in on this IPO. If eventually one day down the road, this all kind of becomes one, do you think that these stocks will always remain separate? Do you think these companies, Tesla will be Tesla, SpaceX will be SpaceX? Or do you think eventually this is all just going to be Elon's world out there?
Eventually, it's all going to be Elon's world out there. I think by the summer of 2027, we will have one company, call it Elon Co., that will trade under the ticker ELON. I mean, already SpaceX has merged XAI, and SpaceX. That goes public in June of 26, probably. And then I think that entity merges with Tesla 12 months after IPO. So by summer 2027, Tesla and SpaceX are under one umbrella. And then you have the 4 big business ventures. You have Tesla, SpaceX, X, and XAI, all under, again, let's call it Elon Co. So I think this becomes one unified mission, one unified goal, one unified company. It's the convergence point for Elon's 25 to 30 years as an entrepreneur.
We are going to get into all 4 of those different companies in Elon's empire and then talk about a stock within each of those companies that's benefiting from the growth of what Elon is doing. And that's true. There's ripple effects. It's not just getting in on a piece of what Elon is doing, but also the companies that are riding those coattails and rising along with what Elon is doing. And that is the 4 names we're going to talk about here. I do want to talk about, you have really dug into this. Clearly, you have a strong opinion on where this is heading. And you have a brand new special report out there right now. And it's something no one is talking about. Everyone's talking about SpaceX, but no one is talking about this area of what Elon is working on. So you can scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get that special report from Luke. It's fascinating concept, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more later on in the video of what that piece of Elon's empire is and why it is such a high dollar value adventure. So let's just get to this list first, Luke. We're talking about SpaceX first because SpaceX is the name that everyone is looking at and interested in right now. You can't invest in it quite yet, but what can you invest in today that's strongly connected to the SpaceX story?
Yeah, so I think everyone views SpaceX as a rocket story, and it is a rocket story, obviously. But the fact that it has already acquired X and XAI, Grok, all of the data generation capabilities of X, it is now an AI story that Elon Musk has made it crystal clear the reason SpaceX is IPOing is to get money to launch data centers into space. This begins the orbital compute leg of the AI infrastructure build-out. And this leg is going to be massive because space offers some tremendous natural advantages over Earth when it comes to the cost, the economics of AI compute. That right now, operating a data center in space is exponentially more expensive than operating a data center on Earth. But when you look at what the cost components are of each, the cost components of a data center on Earth are constrained by resources. Resource costs don't go down over time. We're talking land. Land costs go up. We're talking water. Water costs go up. We're talking energy. Energy costs go up. So the cost of building a data center on Earth is only going to probably go up over time. But when you build a data center or throw a data center up in space, your costs are not resource constrained. There is no land cost. There is no water cost because it's 3 Kelvin in space. You don't need to cool things down. And the energy cost is negligible because you have outer space solar panels and the sun is shining 24/7, 365 up there with exceptional intensity. So your costs are actually the cost of chips, the cost of technology hardware, the cost of networking, and tech costs follow Wright's law. Every time you double production, you decrease the cost to produce that, unit cost to produce that by a fixed percentage. So the cost curve on orbital compute is always falling. The cost curve on terrestrial compute is either flat or rising. And that's why Elon's going to space. So SpaceX is becoming an AI space play. And the way that I want to play this is obviously everyone wants to play with the SpaceX IPO, and there's an ETF called NASA that gives you good exposure there. But my preferred way to play it is through a company that I think Elon's going to partner with, and that's Redwire. The ticker is RDW. What Redwire does is, if you look at the Elon empire in-houses a lot of things, but it cannot in-house everything. There are certain things the Elon empire cannot in-house because of technical specialties or some various other advantages that these other companies have. Redwire is one of those companies. They build outer space solar panels. They are very established. They literally power the International Space Station with their outer space solar panels. And they have a knowledge base here and a technical set of capabilities that I think is mostly non-replicable by Elon and SpaceX. And so I think that Redwire becomes a big partner for SpaceX. And I think that Redwire actually makes the solar panels that are going to power a lot of Elon's orbital compute ambitions. So as soon as the SpaceX IPO happens and he gets that $75 billion in funding, I think Redwire wins a big portion of that. The stock is starting to wake up, but I think the rally you've seen in it is probably just the first inning of what will be a very big 9-inning rally in that tiny space stock. I think we're around 14, 15 bucks today. It's probably a triple digit stock within 12 months. I really do believe that.
Yeah, the growth story here could be huge, but I think investors, a lot of retail investors in particular, are skeptical about this data center and space story. We've talked about it a few different times on the channel, and people say, well, SpaceX is interesting because of the rockets, because of the launches happening. But it's hard for people to get on board with the idea that data centers could be built in space and that this is actually going to happen in short order, that it's not, a 5 to 10 year off kind of idea, that this is actually the process is underway, contracts are going out, bids are going to be coming in to actually start building this kind of infrastructure. Do you think that that's really where the story is for these data center in space concept? Is it to the point where we're going to start seeing companies like Redwire actually getting some contracts secured for work that's actually going to start?
Yes. So I think that the biggest driver here is going to be the economics that I talked about. Terrestrial compute is resource constrained economics, which are going to go up or flatline, whereas orbital compute are tech constrained economics, which are going to fall over time, like history shows that. So that's the biggest driver. The other big driver here is going to be politics. We are seeing such a populist backlash against artificial intelligence. Look at Pew polls, look at Gallup polls, look at Sam Altman's home getting Molotov cocktailed or shot at. These people in these industries and these companies are not well liked. Maine just passed legislation to ban data center construction in its state. I think 13 other states have proposed similar legislation. You're seeing townships fight over data centers. There is a massive populist backlash against artificial intelligence, specifically against the construction of AI data centers, and it's bipartisan. Kathy up in New York is against them, and so is Ron DeSantis down in Florida. So it's a bipartisan backlash, and I think that bipartisan backlash grows and grows and grows and grows. And I think it reached a boiling point probably by 2028 and flips into some legislation by 2029, and that's when you really start to get a tipping point for this industry. The big dogs are going to want to front run that. And I think that's what Elon is doing. He's front running what he sees as an inevitable legislative pivot against building data centers on Earth. And so he's going to start now. He's going to get that $75 billion in June, and he is going to start immediately. Google has already signed a big partnership with Planet Labs, ticker PL, another one of my favorite stocks in the space, for Project Suncatcher, which is launching data centers in space in 2027. Redwire already has contracts here. Rocket Lab already has contracts here. Apparently, I think it was Google or Amazon, the report broke, is now talking working with SpaceX to get orbital data centers in space. So conversations have started. Some contracts have already started. And I think the IPO in June is going to be a starting gun for an acceleration of those conversations and those contracts. And you start getting money to actually flow towards the Redwires of the world, towards the Planet Labs of the world, towards the Rocket Labs of the world.
Now, before we move on to the other Elon companies, another follow-up question here for Redwire, because I do think that the story is interesting. And you gave a pretty bold prediction of where the stock could be headed in the next 12 months. What will it take to see that, stock chart actually turn around? Because we've seen lots of volatility. It's definitely not trading near its 52-week high. But when do you think we'll start to see really just straight hockey stick growth like we've seen for other companies related to the space trade for Redwire?
Yeah, so that's actually probably the thing that I like about Redwire the most. We were really early on a lot of space stocks, and a lot of them have gone parabolic. We had our big three: Rocket Lab, Planet Lab, and AST Space Mobile. That was our big three for a long time. All three have gone parabolic. All three have gone from single-digit stocks, sub-5 on a lot of them, to $30, $40 plus, and even $100 plus on a few of them. Those have gone absolutely parabolic. Redwire has not. Yet Redwire's technology is just as good as AST's direct-to-cell technology, is just as good as Rocket Lab's, small rocket launch technology, as just as good as Planet Lab's satellite imagery technology. Redwire's specialty in outer space solar panels is just as good as those guys' specialties in their specific verticals. The reason Redwire hasn't caught a bid yet is because who needs outer space solar panels? The space economy so far was about just getting stuff into space, was about getting data for AI. It wasn't about actually powering data centers in space. Elon changes that story in June with that $75 billion IPO and starts pumping money into that vertical of the space economy. And that is when Redwire, I believe, experiences that hockey stick-like growth that Planet Labs has seen, that Rocket Lab has seen, that AST Space Mobile has seen. That is the next big space stock. And frankly, I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but that's coming from somebody that we picked all three of those stocks before they roared 1,000%. So, we have a space track record here, and this is our next big space play.
Really great conversation on the SpaceX story and a great stock to talk about. Let's move on to Elon's other company, the one that everyone's very familiar with, and that's Tesla. Let's talk about that company in general and what you think is happening there. But I also want you to talk about the stock that you're looking at in conjunction to the growth that Tesla as a company might be seeing too.
Yeah, so Tesla is the body for what I consider Elon's empire. That as he brings these verticals together, he has X to generate all this unique data. He has XAI to process that data and create models. He has SpaceX to build these orbital data centers and establish this unprecedentedly large AI infrastructure, AI compute infrastructure. And he has Tesla as the distribution for all of that. Then what good is it to have a great AI if you can't distribute it into the real world? And more than distributing it through computers and through chatbots and through things like Claude and ChatGPT on our phones, he's going to distribute it through autonomous cars. He's going to distribute it through Optimus humanoid robots. He's going to distribute it through a physical supply chain that actually allows AI to have an impact on the real world, physical AI, as a lot of people call it. So that's where I see Tesla's place in the Elon Empire ecosystem, that selling electric vehicles, I don't really care about that. What I care about is distributing AGI through humanoid robots, distributing AGI through robo-taxis. That is Tesla's place in the ecosystem, and I think that story is just getting started. I mean, Cybercab production is just starting. Optimus is starting to ramp up. I think this is going to be very, very large, and I'm very, very positive on Tesla's ability to be the biggest player in at least the United States. China has some big players in this arena, and there will be competition there eventually. But in the United States, I'm very confident in Tesla's ability to become the largest humanoid robot company as well as the largest robotaxi company.
Yeah, this is the part of Tesla that many investors have been excited about. We just haven't seen it come to fruition quite yet. And I think that might be a part of the sticking point with what's happening with this company is everyone's excited about Tesla and the impact it can have in the robotics sector. We just haven't seen that take off yet. What's the timeline for that? And I want you to get to the stock too, because obviously the company that you are looking at to grow alongside Tesla's growth is going to be one that is connected to that robotics story. So let's get into both of those.
Yeah, so the timeline on that, I think, is within the next 1 to 2 years, we start to see Optimus really ramping up and Cybercab ramping up as well. That I think there are physical bottlenecks to building these new devices, these new physical products. But Elon is building the Terafab in Texas, which is this vertically integrated, massive semiconductor facility that should remove a lot of those bottlenecks. So Elon's thesis is that, the bottlenecks in making new products and making AI devices is not really actually in the chips themselves. Like, chips are pretty abundant. It's in the production of those chips, that the loop to make a chip crosses continents and takes months. You have to go over to Taiwan Semiconductor, off in Asia, across the Pacific Ocean to, print the chips. And if you want the lithography, you got to go across the Atlantic Ocean to ASML. And then you have, Intel here. So there's just a lot of movement in the global supply chain for chips and for the semiconductor stuff that goes into making these new devices. And Elon's like, that just takes way too long. Let's condense that feedback loop from months into days by putting it all under one roof. And so that's what he's building in Texas, the Terafab. And again, a lot of the SpaceX IPO money, that's $75 billion, SpaceX is committed to funding, I think, $55 billion of it. Not all of that's coming from the IPO money, but the fact of the matter is SpaceX is committed to spending a lot of money, tens of billions of dollars, on building this Terafab starting in June. So I think that's going to be a massive breakthrough for Optimus and for the robotaxi efforts at Tesla, because now you're going to verticalize and in-house the entire bottleneck and hopefully remove the bottlenecks. So now you can more rapidly produce Optimus robots, more rapidly produce Cybercabs, more rapidly produce these physical devices. So that, I think, is a story that really starts to ramp. Again, not to go back to the SpaceX IPO as the catalyst that starts everything, but that really starts to ramp at the SpaceX IPO in about a month. In terms of the pick that I like for this, I think one of the big suppliers here, ironically enough, even though Elon is super against LiDAR for Cybercabs, I think it's going to be Hesai, which is a Chinese LiDAR producer. First argument on LiDAR, Elon has been against LiDAR for cars, but he has not specifically been against LiDAR for humanoid robots. And I think LiDAR is going to be a very, very necessary thing in humanoid robots. That a car can go without them, maybe arguably for a variety of reasons. But when we're talking about a humanoid robot operating in a house or operating in a factory, that redundancy becomes absolutely necessary. And so I think Elon starts to incorporate LiDAR into Optimus. And I think once that starts, he's going to look for the biggest dog in the space, the biggest fish in that ocean. And that is Hesai. Hesai is the world's leading LiDAR provider, especially for robotaxi programs and increasingly for robotics programs. They are based in China, so there's some risk there, but it's super cheap. Elon's all about cheap. He wants to create this Optimus robot at $20,000. You're not going to do that with LiDAR unless you get Hesai on board. And so I think Hesai becomes a partner for Tesla's physical AI operations ramp over the next 2 years. And that creates a huge tailwind for that stock, which had a moment in the sun, pulled back. And I think the pullback is a pretty attractive entry point for its next moment in the sun, if you will.
Yeah, looking at this chart, it's absolutely an interesting time to be looking at getting into this one because it's had quite a bit of volatility. It's actually a similar chart to what Redwire was, where it's pulled back some, it's had some gains in the past, but again, just volatility is the name of the story. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this stock hasn't gained solid footing quite yet?
Well, it had a massive run up from about $4 and change to maybe 26, 27, push towards 30 on just this realization that they're the leading player in, the global LiDAR market for robotaxis. And I think it's had a pullback as people have kind of grown fatigued with that story. It's like robotaxis are cool, but AI, right? AI is sucking all the gravity out of the room. And Hesai is not traditionally seen as an AI play. But once Elon starts to merge all of his empires under one roof, I think that LiDAR increasingly becomes, or sensors more broadly, increasingly become AI plays. And that's when you'll start to see the AI premium in the multiple. That's when you'll start to see, because the growth has been fabulous there. There's been no question about the earnings growth and the revenue growth at Hesai. It's been absolutely tremendous. It's more of a multiple question. And so when you're going to get that AI premium multiple baked in, well, I think once Elon starts to validate sensors as a meaningful component of the physical AI part of his empire, then you start to get stocks like Hesai, as well as other sensor stocks in the market, get that premium multiple that the memory stocks are getting and the networking stocks are getting and the optic stocks are getting. I think sensors could be kind of next in line there.
All right, well, we've got two more of Elon's companies to cover before we wrap up this video. So let's get on to that next one. We are talking about X next. And so give us a brief little look at what is happening as a catalyst for this part of Elon's empire, and then which company you are looking at as kind of riding along with the growth in X.
Yes, I would say X is arguably the most underappreciated asset in Elon's empire. Data is obviously super mission critical to creating AI, but a lot of people think that the data is commoditized, that it's like everyone has access to the same data and you can go buy it or scrape it or whatever, and it's all commoditized. But I would argue that it's very much not, that there is a big difference between the data that is publicly available online through websites, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whatever it may be, and then the data that's generated on forums and on like social media platforms, Reddit, Twitter, X. These are uniquely human data sets. And we want AI to act like a human. The more human-like AI becomes, the more it will succeed in our world because we built the world for humans. And so the more we can make AI human-like, the more it will succeed in a human world. That's where the X data becomes super valuable because as far as platforms that are consistently generating large volumes of uniquely human data in the world. And so I think X is a really valuable asset in Elon's empire. And that data is going to become increasingly valuable fuel for the AGI that he is trying to build with Grok and, train in space and then inference through and distribute through the Tesla physical arm of this empire. So I think X is a really underappreciated asset in Elon's empire.
I think it's fascinating to look at X as a data company, a data play, and not just as a social media platform, because we know we've seen Meta using the data and information it's gained for a lot of benefit for that company. So I think that's a great way to look at X for sure. I have to be honest, I'm a little bit worried about artificial intelligence learning to be a human by what they see on X. That's a little slightly concerning, but I think it's a good point, and it's an interesting part of why this is a growth story for Elon's empire. Let's get into what kind of stock could grow alongside what Elon is doing with X right now.
Yes, I think a really interesting play here is going to be ARM, ticker ARM. ARM is interesting to me as it relates to Elon's empire because we're seeing this massive shift in the AI compute space from general AI accelerators, NVIDIA's GPUs, towards custom accelerators, towards custom silicon. Google has signed some big deals with Anthropic. Amazon signed some big deals. Microsoft has signed some big deals. Meta has signed some big deals. They're all pushing forward on their custom silicon. The one company we haven't really seen push meaningfully forward on their custom silicon is Tesla or any of Elon's empire. And so I think that's kind of his next big move alongside the other things we talked about is to kind of get into the custom silicon game where he's developing custom silicon that is very uniquely positioned to train on top of social sentiment data. And I think he does that on top of ARM architecture because a lot of these other chips are built on top of ARM architecture. It's the best architecture in the world. And so I think ARM wins when that happens. And so I do believe that in the next 12 months, ARM and whether it's Tesla or SpaceX, someone within the Elon empire, there's some big partnership there announced that makes ARM, at least in the market's perception, makes ARM look like the chip supplier, the custom chip supplier or custom tech chip supplier for Elon. And that, of course, you've seen what it does to other stocks. That could create a huge rally in the stock. Now, the stock has run up quite a bit because custom silicon is a very hot theme in the markets right now. But we're in a momentum market entirely, and things that are hot will likely remain hot. And so this to me is a stock that you want to buy on pullbacks. I think the momentum here is very real and fundamentally supported and could get a huge boost through any sort of Elon connection in the next 12 months post SpaceX IPO.
Yeah, I think the momentum story is very true that the stocks that are growing are going to continue to grow. We're just seeing the money inflow into these names. But you do have another way to look at ARM, and I think that this is really interesting. It's not one that I have heard of before, so I wanted to share that with the viewers too. Let's talk about a different way to look at investing in ARM if you believe in the thesis of ARM having a lot of future growth still ahead.
Yeah, so that would have to be SoftBank. SoftBank is this massive tech fund in Asia. It's run by Masa Son. Masa Son is a visionary, made some really good bets, made some really bad bets. So one of his biggest bets right now is ARM. SoftBank owns a large portion of ARM. Apparently, they actually tried to acquire Cerebras before their most recent IPO that just happened. So he's being very aggressive with his kind of AI semiconductor supply chain push. And I do think that if ARM succeeds, obviously ARM stock is going to go up a bunch, but SoftBank is sort of a backdoor way to play it. They also have a massive investment in OpenAI. They have massive investments across the whole really AI stack. And that is a stock that, it's not going to give you your 100% 6 months returns that a lot of these other kind of smaller AI stocks can, but it's a lower beta. I'm not going to say safer because this is all investing is risky, but it's definitely a lower beta way to get into the Elon empire, but also just more broadly, the AI boom.
All right, interesting way to look at investing in ARM. I think SoftBank is a different way to look at getting in on this stock that hasn't seen the kind of parabolic rise that ARM has. So, interesting note for investors if you want to look at a different way of investing in ARM. Let's get on to that fourth company as part of the Elon empire, and that's XAI. First off, let's talk about, just for those who maybe aren't as familiar, which portion of the Elon's empire does XAI fill? And then let's get into the name that you are watching in connection with this company.
Yeah, so XAI is going to be the brain, right? It's the brain of the whole empire. If X is the fuel, if SpaceX is the engine, if Tesla is the body, then XAI is the brain. It is the brain that, fires the neurons and makes it all work. And that's why it's probably the most valuable component of the entire ecosystem. How good is an empire without a brain? So I think that XAI, it's obviously all about grok, it's all about training the models. And the way you want to play this is the same way you would play pretty much any AI compute play, which is you need more compute, you need more memory, you need more networking, you need more optics, you need more front, you need more all of it. So the whole stack benefits as XAI scales, but I think one of the uniquely undervalued, underappreciated verticals of that stack right now, because memory stocks have had a massive run, optics are the latest, hot thing in the markets. These stocks have had massive runs. The ones that have had big runs, but not as big, and where the multiples still seem pretty attractive, honestly, are going to be in neo clouds. We need more compute, whether it's for XAI and Grok, or whether it's for Anthropic and Claude, or whether it's for OpenAI and ChatGPT. These guys are spending $850 billion on new infrastructure this year, and the implied guide is that it's going to go up in 2027. And if you look at Bloomberg projections, they're expecting it to go up in 2028 and 2029 as well, before peaking in 2030 around $1.1 to $1.2 trillion in that year alone. So we're in the biggest capital allocation spending spree in the history of human capitalism. And the cornerstone of that is compute, just raw compute, build more infrastructure for compute. And that's where the neoclouds come in. They are servicing a structurally undersupplied industry with the most mission critical undersupplied component of it. And so I think when you look at the neoclouds, there's a lot of names out there. Our favorite, unfortunately, has run quite a bit. And that is Nebius, NBIS. They're more of a European neocloud player. Really interesting story how they used to be Yandex in Russia, basically Russia's Google. And then, when Russia invaded Ukraine, they had to sell some assets and they became Nebius. Really interesting backstory. If folks want to look that up. But that's our favorite neocloud. The growth there is absurd. I mean, triple-digit revenue growth every single quarter. It's sensational. Margins are improving there really nicely. The valuation is still super, super cheap, but the stock has had a big run. The other one that the market loves to hate, which is why we now love it, and it's climbing a wall of worry very nicely, is CoreWeave. That CoreWeave was, oh God, it's so levered. It's so tied to OpenAI. But you know what? XAI was a customer of CoreWeave before Elon built this supercluster in Memphis, the Colossus supercluster. So there is more to this story than OpenAI. There is the XAI component to it. And I think that their leverage is going to become a significant benefit, tailwind for them as doubts about AI spending ease. That leverage is a very bad thing when there are industry headwinds, and leverage is a very good thing when there are industry tailwinds. And right now, the tailwinds are blowing and the headwinds are not. And I think that only accelerates over the next few months, potentially over the next 12 months. And CoreWeave is a stock that could absolutely rip higher because of its leverage, the very reason that people avoided it for so long. But that stock is now waking up, and much like Redwire, I think it's in the first inning of a pretty big 9-inning rally.
Yeah, I think the stock stock the market likes to hate is a good way to describe CoreWeave for sure. There's some mixed opinions out there, but if we saw Nebius had the kind of gains it's had up 130% in 3 months, the story could be very similar for CoreWeave, which is kind of in the same vein of where we're seeing all of this demand and all this growth happening in the market. So some great stock recommendations here, but all of the things we talked about today, they do all require one important piece, and that's capital. You need money to fund all of this. So talk about that a little bit more. This is that special report that you have out there, Luke, on talking about SpaceX is this $1.75 trillion IPO. It's what everyone is talking about. But this portion of Elon's company is something no one is talking about, and it's worth a lot more than that.
Yes, I would say that we have these four companies coming under the Elon Empire umbrella, and he's doing that to verticalize all of his operations and to essentially create one company for all of capitalism. I really do believe that's what he's trying to do. But capitalism is based on, to your point, capital. So you need capital to fund this. And if you can make that capital unique to your company, then you create a massive advantage, not just using, dollars but using your own currency, your own ecosystem for transferring money, for paying people, for doing all that, essentially eradicating banks, then you develop a massive advantage for your empire. And that is what he is trying to do with X Money. So he just launched X Money, I believe it was last month or earlier this month. And it is essentially what he wanted to do with PayPal when he first got into the game, right? PayPal was his first claim to fame. That's how he stuck his flag in the tech world for the first time. And PayPal before was named X. That was its name. And the whole idea was essentially social payments and social money. And obviously, he didn't get to see that vision through after the PayPal acquisition and sell out and everything. A lot of other cooks in the kitchen prevented him from doing that. But now he is the master chef and he gets to decide what he wants to do. And he is now making that original vision from the late 90s of X, a social payments platform, with, the current X and with X Money. And I think it gets built on the blockchain. I think it becomes a unique currency. I think it replaces banks in a lot of places. And I do think it becomes the financial juice, the capital behind Elon's empire. Meta wants to launch a data center through SpaceX rocket. They pay them through X Money. They want, consumers want to access Grok or some AI chatbot that they're distributing. They pay through X Money. You buy a Tesla or a robo-taxi through X Money. You buy your Optimus robot for $20,000 through X Money. It all becomes one hub for the financial transactions within the Elon empire, which this empire, it spans a large part of the economy. So then it becomes a financial hub for a large part of the economy, thereby eradicating a lot of need for banks. As Bill Gates once said, banking is absolutely necessary, but banks are not. And Elon, I think, is proving that out with X Money. And I'm very excited about this really underappreciated vertical of the Elon empire that's emerging right before our very eyes.
Yeah, this is a huge opportunity for investors. Again, if you want to get into all of Luke's research on X Money, an effort that could be 15 times bigger than the SpaceX IPO, this is a huge deal. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get a special offer for Luke's special report and really get a hold of his entire InvestorPlace system and his innovative investor newsletter. You are absolutely on the cutting edge of technology, Luke, and it's always so great to talk to you. Thank you for this great conversation on Elon's empire and what could be coming next. And thank you for watching, everyone. If you are curious about some other ways to look at investing in the SpaceX IPO before it happens just a few weeks from now, make sure to watch this video next. You can find the video and the full conversation here.